Hello and welcome to Kuya Code. Akusi Kuya Code, and in this video I will be discussing and going over the introduction programming challenges in Hackerrank. And in the future I plan on doing the other subdomains as they are listed here. So these are perfect for beginners and they give you a strong foundation. Plus in this video is a good way to document my journey in and keeping me motivated to continue to learn programming myself. We'll start with these seven, and then, like I mentioned in future videos, we'll go over some of the other ones. So the first one, maybe I should probably start with the introduction here. Go with this first one. So basically, this is just the classic starter program. Print "Hello World" to the screen. This is a string. A string is just any sentence or group of characters, or technically even a single character that's enclosed with these double quotes. And this is a print piece of code that literally just prints it to the console, as you will see below. You could do it this way directly inside of the print function, which is called a string literal. But as it shows here, you could also make it into a variable and then just pass the variable. Either way, it works. So this challenge, there isn't really anything to it. You literally just hit submit code, and then it completes it. Success, and then you move on to the next one. And the next one would be if else. So when it comes to if else, they're also called conditionals. It's a way to make decisions in your program. So if something, do something. If something else, then do something else. It's similar to most languages. Python syntax is a little bit easier because you don't need to the actual code or the syntax that you write is a little bit easier. So in this example, we're given a number and we need to perform the following conditional actions. So if the number is odd, print weird. If it's even and within the range of 2 to 5, print not weird, etc., etc. So of course we're going to need some if statements is what they're called. So the first one we can do, well actually the thing is we need to figure out if a number is even or odd. So an easy example, if a number is evenly divisible by 2, then it's even. If it's not divisible evenly by 2, then it's odd. So just like in the last example where we had a variable for the string, in this case I'm also going to make a variable. I'll just call is even. And what I'm going to put in here is the number, which is the number normally what we are, normally the input, sorry, is anything that we can type in as the user. But in this case, it is also something that the website is providing to us. So this is just whatever number the website is giving us. By default, it makes it into a string. And in order to do math of like division, for example, we need to make it into an integer. So an integer, for example, is a whole number like 1, 2, 3, 4. The alternative to that, or at least one of the alternatives, is a float, which is a number that has a decimal like 1.5. So we need to make it into an integer. So we can just do n, and instead of doing divide, we can actually do the modulo operator, and you can put modulo 2. So this just actually gives you the remainder. So like normally back in, when you were in school, back in, I don't know, grade 7, grade 8, you probably learned long division for the first time. And if you say 5 divided by 2 equals 2 remainder 1. So in this case, it's just going to give you the remainder. So if you're trying to figure out whether a number is evenly divisible by 2 or not, the remainder is always going to be 1 or 0. So in this case, if the remainder is equal to 0, then you know that it's even. And of course, if it's not equal to 0, you know that it's odd. So I'm just going to have a variable there to make it a bit easier. And then I'm going to have an other variable for this section to figure out if a number is between two values. So I could call it between 2 and 5 equals. And in this case, you can do n is greater or equal to 2 and n is less than or equal to 5. So that's my second variable. Put that in brackets. And normally you don't necessarily have to make all these variables because you could just have this in the statement or inside the if statement, but I like to do this just for teaching purposes, just for the sake of clarity. So between, what's the next one? 6 and 20 equals, and you can just kind of do the same thing. You can copy and paste, but this time it'll be 6 and 20. And the last one is greater than 20 equals n is greater than 20. Something else is the variables are written in what's called camel case, where the first letter is a lowercase and then the first letter of all the other words are uppercase. It's just a convention. There's nothing forcing you to do it, but this is just what, the convention is. So now for the if statements, you simply write, well, the first one is n is odd. My variable calculates even, so I can just literally put if not even. And what do we do if it's not even? Print weird. I'm gonna make sure that it's, capitalized. That's the first one. Second one is if even and between 2 and 5, print not weird. The next one, if even and between 6 and 20, print weird. And the last one, if even and greater than 20, print. That one is also not weird. So that should be it for that. Let's go ahead and run it. Even is not defined. It's because I didn't have them. So I got an error because the variable name even wasn't defined. So I defined it and I had it spelled wrong. So yeah, that's it for the second one. Let's go ahead and submit this. This should work. This should work. All right, so that one is done. Okay, on to the next one. The next one is about just simple math, arithmetic operators. So let's see here. It's giving us two numbers. So for example, 3 and 5. Print the following. So the first line contains the sum of the two numbers, so 3 and 5 is equal to 8. The second line contains the difference between two numbers, which is 3 minus 5 is negative 2. And then the third line contains the product of the two numbers, so it's 3 times 5 is equal to 15. So that's pretty simple as well in Python. You literally just can put a plus b for the first one, print a minus b for the second one, print a multiplied by b for the third one. Let's go ahead and run that. Okay, that was successful. The first run code only does a basic example, which is pretty straightforward. But a lot of times when you run when you submit it, it shows there could be like 15 different examples. Some of them are super long, some of them are super short. So it's just to cover all your bases to make sure that your code is covers all possible angles. Okay, that one was successful as well. The next one is going to be, I believe, the same thing, but division instead. So um, this one's a bit trickier because you have 3 divided by 5. 3 divided by 5 equals 0 if you use two slashes or divided by signs. And that's because it automatically, you can kind of consider it rounding down because this is only for integers, so it's not able to hold on to the decimal portion of it, so it just throws it away and you just lose information. So if I just print as it shows, a divided by b, and you run that, it's going to be incorrect because it's expecting this. Well, I suppose in this situation it's 4 divided by 3, which is actually 1.333, but all this was thrown off. So what you have to do is, if you want the floating points, you're only supposed to have 1 instead of 2. So if I do that as well, then in this case, it does have both of them, and we are good to go. like I said, that's kind of, it's not necessarily tricky, but sometimes you might accidentally do the wrong one without noticing, and then your output is all wrong, and you got to go back on your code and figure out why it's wrong. Okay, and that one is pretty straightforward. Let's see here, what is next? So loops. So loops are super useful. The provided code stub reads an integer n, which is the integer here. It's non-negative. List all non-negative integers that are less than n equals 3, 0, 1, 2. Print the square of each. So not only do we have to um, run code n number of times, but we also have to do something each time. So there's something called a for loop. This is one type of loop, but for I in range of n. So range is just within the range of whatever the number is. So for example, if you have 10, like I can actually just type 10 here. Oh, we have to give it something. Then you can just print I. So this is going to print a number for every number in the range of 10 in this situation. So we got that. So yeah, that's 10 numbers. But you notice that it starts at 0, which isn't really intuitive when you first start programming, and it only goes to 9. And that's just because it doesn't include this specific number. What you can do instead is start at the first parameter, start at 1 with a comma, and separate it by a n plus 1. So if you do that, then it starts at 1 and goes to 10, so that way it fits the, your expectation. In a lot of cases, you'll just keep it at 0. You don't necessarily need that, but once you get more familiar with things, you will kind of know when to use each. But in this situation, as it mentions, is that we have to, what did it say? Print the square of each number. So a square is just simply a number times itself. So you can literally do I times I, which would give you the right answer, which 10 times 10, 9 times 9, 8 times 8, 7 times 7, etc. We don't need that anymore. But also something else is you could do it this way. If you have two of them, it means power. So that means, like, for example, if this is 3, it's 3 to the power of 2, which is the same as saying 3 times 3. So we can also run it that way as well. Although it doesn't want it this way. So we'll delete that, and that should be fine. I also need to delete this. Okay, that's accepted. And we will, all right, cool, that one is done. When it loads. Congratulations, Kua, you solved your 5th coding challenge. Keep it up. All right, cool. I think we only have 2 more. The other one is, we'll do this one first, this other print function. This is kind of the same as the last one. It's just that it's a different way to use the default print. So what we will do is, without using string method, try to print the following. So you're given a single number, so n equals int of input, and you need to print all the numbers between 0 and that number in sequence, because before we did for I in range of n. I don't need this. And then we can just simply print I, except this is going to say that it's wrong because it's, for each number it's giving you a new line, but it wants you to have it all on the same line. So the trick in this case is there actually is more parameters, which I can actually show you if I just open up Visual Studio for a second. That's for the next one. For I in range, I'll just make it 10, print I. When you mouse over this, it tells you the other options. So one option is end, and this is a default. A slash n is a special character, but it signifies a new line character. So this is the default, but we can actually set it manually. So you would do comma and equals, and you just leave it as this is just having nothing between each loop, and this is having a space between each loop. But of course, you don't want the spaces as it shows, so you would just do that, and that should work. Except again, it wants starting from 1 and go to n plus 1. Cool, that one worked. Okay, and the last one's a medium problem. Nope, it went to iter tools. That's not the right one. Let me go back. Don't know why it went there. Okay, this is a function. So, for example, if you are wanting to add taxes to a bunch of values, rather than writing the um, formula multiple times for every single, let's say, employee that you have, you can make a function out of it, and that way that function will have the code one time, and then you can use the function multiple times. So as you can see, so def in Python is stands for define. It means you're defining something. In this case, you're defining a function called leap year. This is the variable name that you're passing into it. So you're passing a year into the leap year function. So let's just read this. An extra day is added to the calendar almost every 4 years. It's February 29th, and the day is called the leap day. It corrects the calendar for the fact that our planet takes approximately 365.25 days to orbit the sun. A leap year contains a leap day. So these are the requirements for a leap year. A year can be evenly divided by 4. It's a leap year, unless the leap year can be evenly divided by 100 and is not a leap year unless the leap year is also evenly divided by 400, then it is a leap year. So first thing is we're going to obviously need conditionals because we need to determine these properties. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to make variables like I had before as well. So the first thing is first, if year, we'll do modulo 4, which means if year divided by 4 has a remainder of 0, that means it's evenly divisible by 4, then we do something. Then we can just, for example, I'll just take one step at a time, then we just return true. Else, this is the other option. If this statement is false, it'll go here, and then it's just return false. So let's just run this. So this is true because 1990 is evenly divisible by 4. I returned false and expected false. The problem is in this case, there's multiple unit tests. This one is actually wrong. 2100, it expected false, and it returned true. Well, if I open up the calculator here, 2100 divided by 4, well, that is even, but why is it false? Well, let's look at the next condition. The year can evenly be divided by 100, which 2100 can be divided by 100. In that case, it's not a leap year. So what we should do is instead of returning true, we will add a another if statement. This is called nested. So if one statement is true, it checks another statement. So I'll just make a variable like I did in the other problem. So not evenly, I'll just copy from this. Not evenly divisible by 100 equals, and now we need a boolean, which is a true or false statement. So year modulo 100 is not equal to 0. This means that it is not evenly divisible by 100. And notice that my variable name describes what this is expecting to be. And the next part is the year is also evenly divisible by 400. So we'll just do that as well. Equals year modulo 400 equals 0. So then what we can do is, if a year is evenly divisible by 4, then we also have to check if it's not evenly divisible by 100 or evenly divisible by 400, then we return true. Else return false. But we don't necessarily need this because that's just, if this is not true, or sorry, if this is not true, it'll just jump down here anyways. So that should work. Yep, it worked. So one thing I want to explain though is Boolean logic. So I have a little chart here. So if you just have one statement that is just true or false, it's pretty self-explanatory. But in this case, you have true, or sorry, you have two statements. So imagine you have a true or false expression here and a true or false expression here. The Boolean logic is using these other operators and as well as or. There are other ones, but we'll just go over these for now. So what this is saying is that this expression and this expression must be true in order to return a true statement. So that being said, this in this case, you don't have true and true, so it's going to return false. And same thing with these other ones. You need to have true and true in order to return true. For this case, it's or, so you only need one true statement. So in this case, you have one true. In this case, you have one true. In this case, you have one true. In this case, you have 0 false. So what it's saying is, well, actually, I'll just put in some test input here. So an easy one. 1996 is evenly divisible by 4, so that's going to return true. What about 2000? 2000 is evenly divisible by 100, which means this statement is false, but 2000 is evenly divisible by 400, which means this is true. So because this, out of these two statements, one of them is true, all we need is one, so it's just going to return true anyways. So that will return true as well, and it does. And then the last one we could try is 1900. In this case, this statement returns false because 1900 is not evenly divisible by 100. That's a false statement because 1900 is evenly divisible by 100. And then for this one, of course, 1900 divided by 400, that's also not evenly divisible. So in this case, this is false and this is false, and we need one or both. So that's going to be false, which means this won't fire, and it'll just default to that one. So that one will return false, and it does. So those are just the beginner level challenges for Hackerrank. These are just the basics, which is very useful in all programming, not necessarily Python. So if you're following along, great. If you found these videos helpful, please like and subscribe for more coding challenges. Let me know in the comments if you have any other questions. We'll see you next time on Kuya Code.